When I was little, I wanted to be Narcissus Queen. For those of you that might not know, Chinese have Narcissus Queen, Japanese have Cherry Blossom Queen, Americans have Miss USA, Miss America. I wanted to be Narcissus Queen. And my grandparents would take me every year to Chinatown around Chinese New Year. And we go down to the Chinese Cultural Plaza. And I loved it. It was firecrackers and lion dancing and great food. And the Narcissus Queen pageant would come through. And they're just beautiful, beautiful women, cheongsam, the long white gloves. And so I came home and I told my mom, I want to be Narcissus Queen. And she said, well, honey, you can't be Narcissus Queen. You don't have a Chinese last name. And I thought, well, okay, I'm going to petition the judges and just tell them that that's wrong. This is back in the 70s, right, where people were told you could be anything, or people were supposed to be told you could be anything you want to be. And so I thought, okay, I'll petition the judges and tell them that's just wrong. Or I could change my name to Kalei Yiklang. And then it became Kalei Rock Salt Plum. And then I think it was Kalei Samsi Min Cake Noodle. Cultural identity is so important here, right? Because I knew I was Chinese, I just wasn't Chinese enough, right? It's hard to think of disruptive leadership, I think, in Hawaii in a cultural context, because who are you disrupting? First of all, everyone's related, right? We've got the people who are in power are your mom's classmates, or your dad's friends, or your grandfather's golf buddies. Also, my Chinese family would have gone nuts if I disrupted and petitioned the judges to have them have a Narcissus Queen with the last name of Stern. I would have brought shame and ridicule to my family. I would have been disowned. I would have been Kalei Mulan, right? I could have that Chinese last name that I wanted. It's so tough because everyone's related. Also, the second point is, who am I to disrupt? Who am I to do this? Our culture has taught us, to respect our elders, respect the process. Don't make trouble, right? Don't make trouble. Don't be a disruptor. Don't be a rabble rouser. I remember that phrase, rabble rouser, from the late 90s. And some of you may know if you were here at that time, it was the broken trust era, the late 90s, when I read in the paper an article about one of the trustees who called a student a rabble rouser. You read through the article, and just to bring us up to speed, this is a student that was a senior in high school. He's the student body president at Kamehameha Schools, and he and a number of people, the faculty, the teachers union, the staff, were very much in support of the president of Kamehameha Schools. Well, this trustee wasn't in support of that, and so he spoke out in support of the president, and she didn't like it, and she called him out. She not only called him out, she called him out of class and brought him down from the Kamehameha campus to her office, and she told him, you're a rabble rouser, and you're a senior in high school. What if I tell your prospective colleges that you're just a troublemaker? Well, fast forward, and the story as we know it is that this rabble rouser and many brave, courageous leaders were able to topple the Bishop Estate trustees and bring down the political process by which trustees were selected, right? Talk about disruptive leadership. It's tough, I think, from a cultural context and from a cultural identity perspective to think of ourselves as disruptive leaders. When somebody asks you, what ethnicity are you? Like there's only one. What ethnicity are you? And here, it's just a source of pride, right? We have to go through the whole litany of what we are, right? I'm Japanese, Chinese, Filipino, Hawaiian, French, Scottish, Irish. And things are coming. I'm Scandinavian, I'm Lithuanian. Really, you're all that? Yes, I'm all of that. I'm 1/32nd this and 1/16th that. But it's a source of pride, right? We are everything who we are. You can also tell it's a source of pride because we have one middle name for every ethnicity we are, right? Nobody here is John Michael Miller, right? No, we're like, my name is Stacia Marie Puanani Mai Ole Onapali Ko'olau Michiko Mulan Nakamoto Fuller. I mean, you got to have the hyphenated last name, right? Nakamoto Fuller. And it's a source of pride because it's everything who we are. The thing with names is so funny. People tell me all the time, I didn't know your name was Paula. And I tell people, I didn't know that either. I didn't know my name was Paula until maybe 6th grade when you had to fill out the pre-SAT test with the bubbles, and I realized, oh gosh, my first name's Paula. But everybody called me Kalei, my middle name. And we know so many, I have a lot of friends and family. People in my generation, I think, my parents' generation, we have English first names and then Hawaiian middle name or a different middle name. And what you're called depends on where you are or who's calling you. You all know the grandmothers that call you by every single name that you have. That's how you know you're in trouble, right? So if you think about names, and we all have friends that do this. My friend named John, right? And all throughout school, his name's John. And with his friends, his name's John. And at home, his name's John, or maybe John Boy. You know how we like to do that too, John Boy. And then he goes away to college, he goes away to the mainland and comes back, and all of a sudden his name's Kimo. And you're thinking, makes class reunions a little tough. Like, I thought his name was John. I don't know. His name tag says Kimo. And I say this not to ridicule or make fun, not at all. It's a source of pride of who we are. He was always John, but he was always Kimo. And when you're here in Hawaii, you feel this need to prove that we're modern and we're Western. I mean, look at it, we have English names, right? Like, that makes a difference. And then when you're on the mainland and when you're interacting with other people and they say where you're from, I'm from Hawaii, and my name's Kimo, right? You want to prove that it's a source of pride that where you're from and your Hawaiian name. It's the paradox, I would say, of cultural identity. It's that John and Kimo, it's always who he was, but how do you align those two names and all these ethnicities? Can imagine it's tough for people that are new here to Hawaii and try to fit in and make a living and try to make a difference. Some of the things that they've been taught, are just turned on a dime. The achieve at all costs. It's a meritocracy, individualism, stand out. It's a little different here, right? Because things are not only slower and more expensive, and they take longer. It's a little different. It's a different way of life. You don't just start the meeting. Okay, here we are, and here's agenda item 1. You have to have your introduction section in your meeting on the agenda has to be at least 15 minutes, right? Because you have to talk, you have to ho'omali, right? You have to get to know everybody. On a half an hour meeting, it's 20 minutes. Like, really? Your content is 10 minutes. That's all you're gonna get done, unless you take the time to build those relationships. And that's what I think we know that's what it takes to be an effective leader. To think about disruptive leadership, if you're going to disrupt, I think we can do it together, no matter who you are. If you're from here, from Hawaii, or not, new here to the islands, together I think we can disrupt the status quo and uproot, and be disruptive leaders. There's so many issues that are just hot and divisive. The GMO issue here is huge, right? And you can see in the online editorials just how divisive it is. I can imagine for smaller communities or smaller islands like Hawaii, just how tough that is. The same-sex marriage issue, equally hot. Passionate voices and debates on both sides. If you're going to disrupt, do so with compassion and care. The people that you're going up against, there's your family, those are your friends, those are your friends' families, right? It's your auntie's, husband's, sister's, dog walker's hairdresser, right? We all know you can do the 6 points and figure out who they are. They have families, they have parents, they have pets, they have people that are waiting for them to come home to dinner. So if you're gonna disrupt, do so with compassion and care. Second, know what you stand for and know what you just can't stand. Know how it aligns with your values, whatever issue it is that you choose, know how it aligns with your values or grates completely against them. Disrupt with a vision and with a purpose. And third, I would say, to know who you are and to embrace who you are and disrupt away. Embrace what it is that you bring to the issue, to the perspective, and to the discussion. It's taking my own advice. I've known now can embrace my 1/8 Chinese. Never got to be narcissist queen, but that's okay. Got over that. I got to be TED Talk speaker. It's good. It's better than narcissist queen. So embrace who you are. My 1/8 Chinese, 3/8 Hawaiian, and all the other haole parts of me that make up me. And disrupt and disrupt away and be confident in and know that you bring culture, context, and content. You are that, and no matter who you are and where you're from, you have something to show for and to be proud of. You know, for us, for disruptive leadership, it was a little tough, I think, for me to put that into the cultural context. And I came up with that, with your cultural identity, and you know how important it is to know that. My job I'm the director of the Omidyar Fellows, and it's as Forrest mentioned, it's a leadership development program here in Hawaii. We just launched last year, so it's a new program. We seek to disrupt leadership, I would say, in a way. It's a little subtle perhaps now, and I'm wondering if there's a way that we could push the envelope a little more. We teach the Omidyar Fellows new skills. We bring a cohort together of people that are from different sectors, and we push a little bit. We want leaders that are accountable and that are unafraid to be held accountable, and leaders who will work with people across the table and across the aisle, across the channels of water that separate our islands. We want leaders who are open and transparent about their values, their motives, and their relationships. And we want leaders who understand the power of an individual and a group of individuals. And those that will do so will disrupt with compassion and care. Later tonight, you'll hear from such great disruptive leaders. People like Forrest and Nicole and Josh are so solid. They're courageous, they're unafraid to disrupt, and they do so with just such grace and compassion. It really is, it's an honor to know them and to follow them as new leaders in Hawaii. I think one of the best ways to think about this in a context to know who you are is to know your ancestors, know your kupuna, and know the struggle and the strife and the wisdom that they knew. You know, go back in your family trees and figure out, you know, who are the heroes in your life and in your journey, and who are those that might needed to be rabble-roused. You know, who are those people in your past that when you learn more about them, they've made decisions that you actually don't agree with, right? It doesn't sit right with you. Embrace that though, and know who they are, and know why you stand up for what you stand for. I'll end with a professional story that is a bit personal as well. I struggle as the leader of the Omidyar Fellows with my identity, with a cultural identity as a young-ish leader. I used to be young, and now I have to say young-ish because I'm working with people a lot younger than I am. As a young leader here in Hawaii, and realizing what my value is and what the value is of local leadership. What's the value of the Western philosophy, model, or practices that the Omidyar Fellows are bringing into Hawaii? And what's the value of our indigenous knowledge and of our connection to our land, to our aina, and knowing who we are? And more importantly, how can we integrate those two to support new leadership in Hawaii? I think we do so by disrupting a little bit in our own way, in our own context, to be unafraid to do that, to disrupt in a way that is caring and that is compassionate and humble, and do so in a way that really shows why Hawaii is Hawaii. Mahalo nui, aloha.